listening to Kingston Community Radio on WGHQ Kingston. On your radio at 920 AM and 92.5 FM, and also online at mykcr.org.
Hi, I'm Kelsey Grammer. Wounded Warrior Project supports injured veterans by connecting them with fellow warriors, by serving them through mental health and wellness programs, and by empowering them to live on their own terms. No one should face a battle alone. Join us at woundedwarriorproject.org.
We are Lions. We bring hope where it's needed, support causes that matter, change lives, change communities, change the world. Visit lionsclubs.org to learn more.
Introducing the YMCA. Sure, you know the Y for a swim or a game of hoops, but we're more than that. We're a cause. When you take a jump shot at the Y, someone else is getting job training. Practice yoga as a team practices her leadership skills. We give people of all ages, incomes, and backgrounds a chance to learn, grow, and thrive. So while you might think of the Y as the place for lifting weights, we're also about lifting entire communities. That's the Y. We're so much more. Visit ymca.net/more.
Hi, this is Jared Mans from the Spring Lake Fire Department, and I support Kingston Community Radio, and so should you.
This portion of Kingston Community Radio is brought to you by Ulster Savings Bank. Visit their newest branch, conveniently located at the Ulster Commons Plaza in Lake Katrine. Experience the difference that local community banking offers with the convenience of another great location, easy access, plenty of parking, and a 24-hour ATM. Ulster Savings Bank, invested in community, invested in you. Member FDIC.
Okay, good morning, Fred Costello.
Good morning, Lawrence. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I think the phone's ringing. I think that might be Bill McKenna. So hang on one second. Bill? Hang on, buddy. Can you hear us? Can you hear us? They've been having a hard time hearing us, so we're going to have to talk loud. Bill, can you hear us? Okay, good.
It sounds like you guys are in a cave. I can hear Lawrence fine.
Are you on a cell phone?
Cell phone?
Are you on a cell phone or a landline?
Landline.
Okay, good. So we should have no problem then.
It's got to be something in the studio there.
You said there's something probably in the studio?
I think, no, what happened was we've had this problem with the phone since the ice storm, and I can't figure it out. He's coming in next week to take a look at it, but for some reason our gain adjustment failed. And usually when a caller calls in, it will raise the gain level, and for some reason it doesn't raise it anymore. So I called Paul Thurston. He's going to come in next week and take a look at it. I mean, we paid top dollar for this.
I talked to Michelle Hinchy after the show a week or two ago. She said she had the same problem. She could barely hear you guys.
Yeah, well, it works better when you're on a landline, so it's good that you're on a landline, so we should be okay.
Okay.
Good.
Let's start the show.
Let's go.
We actually already did, Bill. Good morning. You're welcome. I'm glad you called. Took a little time.
Good. How are you?
Doing great, pal. Doing great. It's been a while since you've been on, so I was excited when you said yes.
Yeah. So, you guys ready for the snow on Friday? Back to winter?
How much snow are we supposed to get? Are we supposed to get a lot?
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be 61 degrees today.
Yes.
I mean, Fred's got his shorts on already.
The last I saw, it could be up to 18 inches they were talking about this morning.
Really? Boy, that's amazing, isn't it?
That sucks.
Yeah. That's going to be... are you all recovered from the last storm, Bill?
Say that again?
Are you all recovered from the last storm?
Yes. I think we pretty... they're still doing some brush cleanup here and there, but I think for the most part, we're in pretty good shape.
That was
a rough one, though. That was one for the record books.
That one was rough.
How about you guys?
We're exact same scenario. We're still dealing with a couple of electronic glitches that came as a result of the intermittent power outages, and then just brush. We still have 4 locations open to residents where they can drop off tree limbs and brush that had fallen during the storm. I think Bill Murphy's shutting that down at the end of the week. Our board hasn't decided when we're going to shut ours down yet. It seems like there's still quite a bit of activity, so we'll probably extend it at least for another week. Oh, we lost him. I don't have Lawrence. That's okay. So, Bill, please try to call back, and we will figure out how to turn that beep off, too. But, yeah, we still have 2 locations where residents who were impacted by the storm could drop off their brush. They're geographically close to neighborhoods. One on JC Field in Berkeley Heights. One on Cantine Field, parking lot A between the tennis courts and the ice rink. And one on Park Circle in Mount Marion Park. And those facilities will remain open at least till next Friday. And we encourage folks who have been impacted by the storm to use this opportunity to help dispose of yard waste that might have accumulated. Yeah, he got cut off for some reason.
On a landline?
I don't know.
I was just about to go to the bathroom. I'm glad I heard that. Cool. We'll wait for him to call back in.
Okay.
And then we will...
Right, so let me I'll do a little housekeeping while we're waiting for him. We have the YMCA announcement to host the bicycle safety class. The YMCA rolls into spring with smart cycling class. Do you want to know how to navigate traffic safely or where to use those bike trails? Need advice on what kind of bike that's right for you? Sign up for a smart cycling class scheduled for April 1st and 2nd. This is a leading national bicycle education curriculum developed by the League of American Bicyclists and has taught thousands of people across the country for 40 years. Tom Polk has been a long-time instructor for this. YMCA has been an amazing partner. Well, they can be arranged for bicycles and helmets for folks that may not have them. So if you enjoy outdoor cycling activity and you want to experience it in a safe way and make sure the equipment you're using is correct, this is a great opportunity to do that. The deadline for registration is Monday, March 28th. This will be online. You can sign up online at the YMCA, and that location is at 507 Broadway, Kingston, New York, and it's... Yeah, I'm not going to be able to get that one out. So, yeah, you could go on the YMCA website. They have information. And the classes will be Friday, April 1st from 5:30 to 9:30. And 5 hours of bike activity starting at 9:30 on Saturday, April 2nd. We'll conclude with a group ride in the streets of Kingston. So this is pretty in-depth, pretty exciting. If you're interested in cycling and learning a little bit more about it, or you're just brand new to it, there's a great opportunity to introduce yourself. So hopefully we have Bill back. Bill, are you with us?
I'm here, Fred.
Oh, you're clear.
You ever get on a bike anymore?
Yeah, I can hear him good now.
Yeah. Rarely. I think I only rode a bike like once last summer.
Okay, you're doing better than I. It's probably got to be 10 years since I got on a bicycle.
It's so much fun. It really is.
And it's good exercise, too.
Yeah. That was
get back into it.
Yeah, it's a great way to be outdoors and enjoy the outdoors. And I like the pace because you're going, 10, 15 miles an hour, so it's a little bit faster than walking. Right. It doesn't beat up your knees as much as running. So it's
So we the last before I got cut off, we started to talk about Sorganies in the storm. Now, have you guys totally recovered then?
Yeah, like 99% recovered. We've
Morning, Bill.
We had a couple of we have our couple of brush depots still open. We're being joined by Mayor Murphy at the moment. They did a similar program where they went out and collected brush, and I think there's an announcement they're going to end that this weekend.
If we get caught up on everything, yeah, it'll end this week. This will be the third week. But I did a ride around yesterday, and it's pretty much cleaned up. But again, we'll have our spring cleanup in April, so anything we didn't get to, if it's in your backyard, bring it out to the front.
Yeah. Well, so you've actually gone to people's homes and picked it up.
We've gone house by house,
That's going to be compromised with a snowstorm.
Yeah, but I mean, I think we're pretty much done for the most part. I mean, unless people haven't put it out yet, which a few people have been a little late putting out. But yeah, we went house to house.
Yeah, we couldn't do that.
Well, obviously, you have a much bigger area to cover than we do.
But we created areas where people could deposit brush, and I mentioned where they are, and those have been well used. We're really kind of surprised. So now we're gonna have to come up with a plan to either grind it in place or transport it and then grind it someplace else.
Do you have a portable grinder, Fred?
We have a chipper, but I think for the volume we're experiencing at least 2 of the locations, we're going to need to bring in a tub grinder type.
We do that. We do that once, usually once or twice a year. We do that out on our street.
You burn down that pile. Shouldn't use the word burn, but
we don't burn anymore. Yeah, we do.
A marshmallow roast.
Yeah.
But we bring that in and get that like once or twice a year. We bring a tub grinder in, and
you contract out or you use the counties?
Contract out. I think. Yeah, I know a couple times we have. I'm not sure if we use the county or not, but it's usually a barter system. The person that does it for us wants the material and vice versa. So it doesn't really. It costs us minimal because we have a normal brush pile that's open every Wednesday and Saturday on our street, all year round. People to bring the brush.
Where do you do that, Bill?
That's on North Street, just across from Price Chopper.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so that's open every Wednesday and Saturday. Same time recycling's open. And people can bring their brush in, and we have a just big staging area. Before we stage our plows during the winter and everything like that. So. It's Will on the phone. I didn't realize that. I was wondering.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I motivated him to come on last night.
Was Jarvis in Florida?
Greg's in Florida.
Okay.
Is it a grass convention?
No, they did that already. That was in Georgia this year.
Sesame and Blue and Kentucky Bluegrass.
Yeah.
Did he come back with any good tips?
Yeah, and he took 2 of the young staff members with him. And it was pretty, because they were kind of tongue-in-cheek about it. We're going to a grass convention, silliness. But they came home and were really awestruck by, the folks that maintain baseball stadiums and football stadiums and college campuses are there. So, there's a true professional industry around turf care. And to Greg's credit, he's really immersed himself in it. And he's one of the leaders of that organization. And when he took the 2 young folks, I think their perspective was dramatically improved about what they do and what their responsibilities are. And so they came home with a lot of excitement.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Good to get new young folks out learning.
Yeah, it sure is. And it was a nice break. They went on one of the weeks when it was pretty cold here, and it was in the 60s and 70s down there every night. So that's not too shabby.
Like it is here this morning. I couldn't believe my car's
beautiful out this
55 degrees this morning. My car said, I didn't.
It's beautiful out this morning.
The calm before the storm.
Bill just said 18 inches.
What? 18 inches? Come on. We're not getting 18 inches.
I hope not.
Jesus, I hope not. I know.
That's what RNN News said this morning.
So
up to 18 inches.
How much?
Up to 18, he said. Yeah, that's probably in higher elevations. Which is you.
Yeah, because I was just going to say
I don't know. It was right across the top of Ulster County, including Saugerties.
Oh, crap.
But there is a big disparity. What the western part of Saugerties, along West Saugerties, Woodstock Road, I think the weather pattern there is more similar to what you experienced, Bill.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
And it could be an all-out blizzard up there.
One of the storms we had maybe a week or 2 ago, after the ice storm, I think, where we got an inch or 2, and Kingston actually got more. They got about 3 inches. So.
I think that was on a Wednesday because I left the studio and the roads were pretty bad. When I got home, there was nothing. I was kind of surprised.
And then over the weekends, we had a couple of whiteouts. They didn't last very long. But I know at one point the highway superintendent was out in one of the back roads up in the hills, and he had to pull over and wait for it to stop so he could see where the road was.
That's a little bit intimidating when that happens.
Especially when you're in a big truck and on a road with no shoulders.
Yeah, and if you're up off of Ohio Mountain or one of the others, there's pretty far down.
Yes.
To go.
And he probably didn't have great radio contact either.
Yeah, the mountains usually don't cooperate with that. But it's amazing because I've experienced where the western part of Saugerties would be having a blizzard, and down by the village, clear skies.
Years ago, my basketball program back in the 90s, I used to run it out of Granty Morris School before I moved over to Vicardi. And there's nights I would go out to basketball at Granty Morris, and we'd come out of the gym at 9 o'clock, and it'd be like a whiteout.
Yep.
And just as soon, like, by the time I got to veteran, nothing.
Totally fine. Yeah.
And it was just, it could be a totally different world. Just
amazing.
Just that little bit difference in elevation. And that's why a lot of times, like, when you hear in Sorgaties, again, Sorgaties is a huge area. People don't realize we're the biggest town in Ulster County. And
second, I think Shandaken's geographically larger.
Okay. All right, we'll give it to Shandaken.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, when schools close or delay, and people that like live in the village in Berkeley Heights are like, why? Well, you don't realize that you have West Sorgaties, Blue Mountain areas, Mount Marion, that the weather can be totally different there in the morning, icy roads, and so it's, the village may be fine, and maybe Berkeley Heights is fine, but the rest isn't,
That's excellent.
We see the same thing in Ontario School District. That stretches from Hurley, West Hurley, the eastern part of Woodstock, up to the Delaware County line, and it could be sunshine in Woodstock and up in Big India, and they've got 6 inches of snow on the ground.
Yeah. Bill, the ice storm was reversed, though, right? The upper elevations didn't get hit with the same amount of ice that we did, right?
I don't think Shandaken had much problem at all. I think that's correct.
Yeah.
And it was a more eastern storm.
Kind of curious about that, too, I know.
Actually, I think it just hovered over Rosendale, Ulster, Sorgaties, and Woodstock.
Yeah.
Lucky us. Cyclone.
Lucky us.
Yeah, that was the worst I've ever seen. The worst I've seen since '87. I remember '87 when I was in Albany in college. October, we had that ice storm in October of '87. It literally shut down the whole city of Albany. And college was closed for a week because of that. That was '80. I remember waking up. Of course, I was probably out the night before, so I woke up and a little groggy. I'm like, is that ice in the window? It's October, whatever. And sure enough, it was just pure ice.
Yeah, really something.
I don't remember. Did that melt off pretty quickly then?
It did, but the damage took, my college was out of power for almost a week.
Right.
And again, technology's advanced a lot since then. I don't think, we can recover. I think we can recover a lot quicker now than we could 35 years ago from storms of that nature. Right. And I remember I had to come home every night. We had classes, but the cafeteria and none of that stuff was open. So literally, I would drive home at night for dinner and go back up to school.
Wow.
Like classes were canceled for a couple of days, but then they got classes going back, but they still couldn't get the cafeteria and those, a lot of the facilities up and running. And I just remember that was a pretty bad storm, but that's what the storm reminded me of,
It wasn't single digits, though, either. It warmed up.
Yeah, it was October, so.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That was one of the worst parts about this storm is we knew there was properties that didn't have any power or heat, and we were going into the third day of that scenario, so it was getting kind of scary.
And I had people calling about, here we're doing the brush pickup, and we're doing everything to help people out, and I had people call and complain that the neighbor's sidewalks aren't shoveled. I'm like, it's ice. I don't want people out there chopping ice having heart attacks.
What you can do is sprinkle some salt.
Yeah, I'm like, if you're concerned about your neighbor's sidewalk, go give him a hand then. Don't call me and complain because it's 2 inches of ice. I didn't do my sidewalk for 4 days. I live on a dead end, fortunately, but that was the least of my worries, during that time frame. We were lucky in the village. I think we were all back up. The storm was Friday. By Saturday night, we're down to only 139 people in the village that didn't have power by Saturday night. And I had to say the air, Central Hudson, phenomenal partner through that. Yeah. They did a tremendous job, and they really, took care of us in the Sorgaties, I know, big time.
Yeah, they did. You had a similar experience, didn't you, Bill?
Yeah.
With the crews. It was, there seemed like there was a crew at every intersection for a little while.
They brought 150 extra trucks in.
It was incredible, the number of vehicles and trucks, and my hat's off to whoever had to orchestrate that whole thing.
Yeah, they did a tremendous, and they were diligent with me. Texting me every day, giving me updates, Yeah. And I got a good story. So last Thursday or Friday, I noticed 2 trees in our back parking lot, or last Wednesday, and they're right behind the Boys and Girls Club. Tall, thin pines, ugly as hell. And the one had broken off like the top 30 feet are broken off, and it was hanging on the other tree.
Oh, yeah, that's a mess waiting.
And I'm like, kids walking through the Boys and Girls Club, the wind blows. So I called my DPW. I said, listen, you got to get over here. I just noticed it. I don't think it happened with the ice. I think it happened after it started melting. I think the ice probably kept it together. And then when the ice melted,
it starts to crack even
right. And they came over and they're like, it was like 40 feet up. They're like, we can't get up there. And there's nothing to climb. It was like a thin pine. And Central Hudson happened to be on Market Street. They went over Exum. Next thing you know, 5 minutes later, 2 Central Hudson guys in bucket trucks came over, took both of them down completely for us.
Did they really?
Yeah.
Ah.
I mean, we stood on the ground and assisted them, but they took their buckets up. They're like, no problem. It was great. It was just another.
Awesome.
They didn't have to do that. There's no wires involved, everything like that, and they're like, no problem.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I actually sent a note to Central Hudson, to my contacts, just because you know what, we're always first to blame them on everything.
Yeah, so you might as well share a good story now.
Absolutely, you got to share. If you're gonna complain when things go wrong, then you should be willing to compliment when things go right.
Yeah, absolutely.
I make it a habit after every major storm like this. I call the CEO from Central Hudson. More times than not, I just leave him a voice message, but I thank him and his crews.
Yeah.
And I happened to mention the foreman for the lineman that was in the Woodstock area during the storm that I had a lot of contact with. And he texted me 2 or 3 days later, and he says, oh, Charlie Freeney got back to me. And I appreciate that. So it goes a long way.
Yeah, good for you, man.
And they remember, if you need something, I mean, we all try to help each other, and...
teamwork.
My first experience with them really was probably my second or third year as mayor when we had another ice storm. Remember on Halloween, and there's danger we were going to have to cancel Halloween, and we didn't want to do it. And there was all talk, and the problem was Market and Elm Street had a lot of wires down from it. And at the time, Mike Hine was county executive, and Mike helped out. And Central Hudson literally saved Halloween for Sorgeties that year. They came and got the wires secured so the kids could go out. And, that wasn't a devastating one. It was just a freak, one-day event.
Timing.
Yeah.
Not there's ever good timing for one of these, but a little bit extra bad.
Yeah, but
So now, you guys had a shelter, an overnight shelter
Yes.
in Sorgeties?
Yep.
So is that the first time you've ever dealt with that?
No, we've used our senior center as
during the hurricanes, we used it.
Yeah, a number of times. So Greg Jarvis and his staff really got it down. We have 100 cots that are available, and they can set up the senior center as a shelter pretty fast. And when we realized the scope of what was happening, I made the call, and about an hour and a half later, I got the message that it was ready to go. And then what was extraordinary this time is Red Cross and the National Guard staffed it, as well as some Frank Ruggiero from the county executive's office. And that was unique. We usually don't have that level of staffing there. And boy, the folks that were there did an amazing job.
Yeah. Right. The best part about that, too, it's a town facility, but it's located in the village, so it covers both of us.
Right.
And I had to get Freddie. I heard Freddie was over there bringing food from the restaurant, feeding people as well. So congrats to you for...
Oh, wow, they ate well.
Yeah, we tried. It's just funny, you don't get the opportunity to plan, and the military came with the meals ready to eat, which is great because they're sustainable and they're nutritious, but they're not known for
some of Freddie's pizza
food. Yeah, so we made some pans of food and sent it over, and it was great. Frank Ruggiero really stepped up in a big way. I know he made a couple trips to the grocery store to make sure that they had water and a variety of soft drinks and all the things that would try to make it as comfortable as possible. So it worked out.
So over the years, we have opened up the our court by the police dispatches like a warming center where people can come in. But in all my time, we've never had anybody stay overnight. And this storm, it was apparent that was going to be necessary. So the Red Cross came in and set up in our community center, which we had planned and talked about for years, but never actually had to utilize. And it all worked perfectly. And they're a great organization. Between them and the National Guard, they were fantastic to deal with.
Yeah, I think Senator Hinchy had a big influence in getting the National Guard to deploy.
Yes, she did.
And
in fact, Senator Hinchy and Legislator Hepner were there helping set up cots. They showed up, and so big thank you to them as well.
It's those tragic events really bring the best out in people.
Absolutely.
It's pretty extraordinary, and you kind of leave with a good feeling. Seeing, it's easy to be cynical nowadays, but when something like that, the neighbors came out and looked out for each other in a big way.
Think about it. We've been in that mode for 2 years.
Yeah, we kind of have.
It's through COVID and everything. It's been 2 years of just people doing extraordinary things to help out other people. Which is a plus. If anything good came out of COVID, it definitely showed the good side of human nature. Unfortunately,
Absolutely.
It showed some bad sides
people
too.
did what they could do. Maybe not everybody rushed out to help open up a shelter, but I know a couple of cases where individuals or couples took in another individual or couple, and they all kind of camped out together, especially if one had a generator.
Yeah.
So it was really nice to see people working together with each other.
It's really uplifting for sure. And the firemen, those folks get dedicated, and they'll go 30, 40 hours just making call after call after call. It's pretty amazing.
I remember that the Friday of the storm, I was in my office because I found one outlet that had power from the backup generator, and I was able to run a wire. And we had 11 during the day on Friday. That storm, our fire department had 11 calls just like in a 6-hour period. It was just nonstop.
Yeah, it's overwhelming.
Yeah. And these guys all work during the day, and it's just amazing the effort they put into it.
It really is. It's something. So much. And I know this is true for your experience too, Bill. It's so overwhelming because so many things happen, and we remember the things we were part of. But then you hear all these stories later on. It's like, holy cow!
Like I didn't know how extensive your shelter was. I didn't have a chance to even get up there. I was dealing with all the brush and the trees down in the village.
They did. That's the best layout of that building as a shelter that we had, and it was the most people we've ever had too, though.
No, I kept up. I'd heard a lot, knew what was going on up there. I just never got a chance to get up there, and but I heard, I did see where you brought food up, and I knew people were using it. So, and like I said, it's another scenario where the village and town work together because it's a town building located in the village, and it services both.
Yeah, it's a perfect central location. So, aren't you looking at us?
I am looking at you. Are you ready to go to break?
Does that mean we're out of time?
That means it's 7:30 and it's time to go to break.
All right, guys. We'll take a break.
I'll
We'll be
talk to
back in a
you
little
guys later.
bit. Thanks, Bill.
Well, morning.
You're listening to Kingston Community Radio on WGHQ Kingston. On your radio at 920 AM and 92.5 FM, and also online at mykcr.org.
There was this one time I went snorkeling in the Caribbean when I was a kid. It really just blew my mind. We saw the most beautiful corals. I remember thinking they were waving at us as they moved with the ocean. And then there were all these amazing fish. I'll never forget it. It completely changed the way I look at the ocean.
Most of us have a memory of being in nature we'll never forget. Let's protect the world's natural places so more memories can be made for generations to come. Visit worldwildlife.org.
This is the story of Daniel, who was born 2 months early. His lungs weren't ready. His heart wasn't ready. His parents could only hope that one day he would leave the hospital healthy, and they would all live happily ever after. Daniel's is just one of the more than 500,000 stories of babies born prematurely last year. You can help the March of Dimes stop premature birth and bring more babies home healthy. Learn how at marchofdimes.com. Working together for stronger, healthier babies.
Everyone is talking about healthcare these days. America spends twice that of other developed countries on our healthcare system, yet our health ranks near the bottom. How can we stop spending so much and getting so little? By shifting to a system that gives more patients access to strong primary care. Primary care can help make America healthy again. To learn more about the benefits of primary care, visit www.healthisprimary.org. This message is brought to you by America's Family Physicians.
Question: what will you find on all over-the-counter or OTC medicine packages to help you choose the right drug and use it safely? The answer: the drug facts label. This label lists the medicine's active ingredients and purpose, how much to take, and warnings you should know before using it. Remember, even OTC medicines you buy without a prescription can cause side effects you don't want. So follow the information listed on the drug facts label. For more information, visit fda.gov/drug facts label. A message from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration.
Hi, this is Winnie from the Rosendale Seniors, and I support Kingston Community Radio, and so should you.
A powerful community bank is one that has leaders that are involved in their community. At Rondout Savings Bank, they invest in the success of our community by working side by side with local people and local businesses. When you choose to bank Rondout, you are part of a bank that is dedicated to the future of your success and the success of your community. Rondout Savings welcomes you to open an account today and discover what it means to be part of a powerful community bank, one that knows you by name. Rondout Savings Bank, always working for you and our community, with branches in Kingston, West Hurley, and Hyde Park, also online at rondoutbank.com. Equal housing lender, member FDIC.
Thank you, Lawrence, and we are back for our second half hour, and we have one announcement. But before we start that, I want to welcome County Comptroller March Gallagher. Good morning, March.
Good morning. Thanks for having me here. It's nice to be in person. Yes.
Yeah.
Watching those numbers, I'm like, it's down enough. I'm going in.
Yeah, we saw you. It's been a while.
It has been like 3 or 4 months at least.
So it's kinda,
I heard you guys talking about the storm. Rosendale was crazy. I was saying it on the break. Our town supervisor was also cooking meals for people right there. Her husband, Jean Walsh's husband, was making breakfast and trying to keep people comfortable.
So those events are just completely tragic, and you get, the upheaval that goes along with it. But when you hear stories like that, it really warms your heart.
I'm so glad that nobody passed away. I mean, actually, I was talking to the county executive about it over the weekend, and we thought with it being so cold, more people would go to shelters than they did. And people really toughed it out. They were like, no, I'm going to try to save my pipes.
There was, I know there was one family, we struggled to get to them, and when we finally did, because their loved ones are calling, we thought they would come, and we had a 4-wheeler so we could take them back, and they wouldn't leave their house. I was like, we don't know if the power is going to be back on. They're like, oh, we have the wood stove started. I'm like, holy cow. So they made their own decision, but we were at least able to report to the family that
they were okay. Yeah. Exactly.
Hey, you know what? People lived through all those type of things long before modern, back in the day, right?
Yes.
So, we've gotten soft over the years where we must have our internet and our, luxury heat and everything like that, but people can survive.
I heard you guys talking about Central Hudson. I thought they did a great job on the storm response. I think what's going on in their billing and the transparency and accountability is an absolute nightmare.
I try to keep those two thoughts separate during a storm, but I hear
it really is separate, but it's a problem. And the rate increase they announced, right after the storm, we all understand that fuel prices are going up, but without knowing whether we're paying our bills properly or they're being properly billed, it's very hard to absorb that kind of increase.
I can't even understand my bill now when I look at it. Like, do I owe? I'm on automatic payment, but then it went from monthly to bi-monthly, but then January is a true-up.
Right.
So it looks like they owe me money, but I'm not sure, and it's like, and I call, and they try to explain it, and I'm like, whatever. I said, just tell me I'm not getting my power turned off.
Right.
That's all I want to know.
I got a letter saying they're no longer going to do automatic withdrawal. I was like,
really?
Well, on one hand, I'm disappointed. On the other hand, good, because I don't really trust you to do that right now.
Yeah, exactly, because I know there's some folks that amounts were taken out that they did not anticipate. And they were in a pinch because now they couldn't meet their other bills.
Yeah.
So that's probably a good thing until they iron it out. Well, this was all started because they changed the billing program.
Right. I actually called. I know Bill was on the line and he mentioned reaching out to Charlie Frenny, but I know a lot of the people there, so I had reached out to Anthony Campangiorni, who used to be active in Ulster County on several boards. He's from Highland originally, and he's the vice president, I think, of customer service or something. Anyway, he said to me, this was months ago, he said, this has been the worst experience of my life. We're replacing 50-year-old code, and what happened was that the the call operators were used to the old system and they were very efficient, but many of them were near retirement age. So when they brought in the new software, those folks were just like, I'm actually going to step back.
right.
Yeah. And then they didn't anticipate like a big wave of retirements, and they actually called in mutual aid to answer phones. But it doesn't stop the bottom line, which is that the bills don't look correct, and that really is troubling.
Yeah, and to be honest, like you just alluded to, Bill, we're fairly mentally capable, and it's hard to track it all and figure it out.
Well, like I said, I was set on monthly, so I was paying $480 every month, which was great. That's what I planned on every month, $480 a month, and then all of a sudden 1 month it didn't come out. So I called and said, why don't you take my payment out? Oh, well, now it's going to bi-monthly. So you owe us $960 next month.
That's hard to plan around for a lot
Yeah,
of people.
I mean, for me, I can't put for the person who goes paycheck to paycheck.
Right.
Not saying, but, I'm like, all right, so that $480, but yeah, for some people, that's going to throw your whole budget off. And even for me now, it's still hard to comp, because I look at the bill and it'll say minus $480 plus $480, and nothing changed in my account. And I'm like, what are all these different charges here? And so I don't know. And I'm still trying to figure it out from the true up from January, because now also my bill says $180 due in March. I'm like, okay, so that means I overpaid. I have a credit card.
I got a negative 1 cent bill. That was my favorite one. I was like, what are we doing? Yeah. Yes. So crazy. I want to give you guys like a little financial update. We closed out 2021 huge at the county. I mean, we were $34 million over budget in sales tax. And granted, we had budgeted very conservatively, so it wasn't, but still, I mean, that's amazing. We budgeted 120 million, 154 is what came in. We had bets in my office about, not with money, but like, who could be the closest without going over. Steve Ross, I'll just give him a shout out. He was the closest without going over. Alicia DeMarco, the deputy, was the closest. But the point is just that, in addition to the American Rescue Plan Act money, which is another $34 million, it's really a good opportunity for us to be planning for the future, investing in things that, make sense, maybe paying down some debt, but also, across the river, we've seen some tax reductions, right? A reduction in county property tax, sales tax, a leniency on the first 150 in clothes and shoes. So I don't see us going in that direction. It doesn't seem like the legislators and county executive are interested in that, but we should be looking at all possibilities right now.
I would question our listeners, though. You have to really look at those headlines, because in Saugerties, we just funded the ambulance.
Right.
But there was a significant reduction in the property tax rate at the same time. So when I look more closely at what was being discussed, I'm like, yes, you reduce the property tax rate, but the overall budget went up actually by percentage more than what we did to fund the ambulance.
Right.
So people are...
It's confusing to people. They need diagrams.
And then you have to weigh in assessments. So if there's trends that influence your property value more than others, even in years where there's reduction, you may experience increase.
The bottom line is we are flush. I'm just saying we are flush, and we're adding 60 positions head count, which has long-term implications that I think we don't always think about, right? Mm-hmm. And our net position in the county is negative $75 million. That's when you take into account all the health insurance we have to pay for retirees. So it's easy to spend money now, not thinking about, what our kids are going to be dealing with, and we really need to pay attention to that. So, yeah.
There's been so much support for local government right now that it's kind of filled the coffers, so to speak.
Right.
But not all the governments are doing well. The federal government clearly is not. So at some point, this party will be over, and hopefully we have the foresight to fill those nest eggs, so when that happens, we can get through without cutting services.
Right. Be prepared. Create some reserve funds. You can create retirement reserve funds. You can create road reserve fund, snow removal reserve fund. We need a new section of the reserve fund policy, maybe not just in the county, but statewide, like climate disaster reserve fund. I'm not kidding.
Yeah, I think this is true for the county too, and I'm sure we're a little bit disappointed that there's not looking like there's going to be the federal aid and the state aid to respond to the storm that just happened.
Right.
And we did go in some capacity above and beyond to a normal response, So it would be nice to get some reimbursement. Fortunately, we do have fund balance that if we had to, we can. However, I would like to use those fund balance for infrastructure improvements or, set aside some funds so that there are resources when people retire in mass.
Yeah.
You get 1 or 2 retirements in a year, should be able to sustain that fairly easily. But if you get 10, that's a lot of payouts for
It's a lot of payouts, right? Yeah, exactly. Speaking of infrastructure, I had been sitting in meetings in the fall, and legislator Lynn Archer, who represented the town of Rochester, said, we don't even have a map of broadband in the county. And I thought, that doesn't make sense. We had mapped it back in 2010. So you guys everyone in Saugerties is served, almost everybody. I sent you a map with one little section, but we're going to update those maps. I really want to be in the position where the county's ready if broadband money comes, because some of the towns were saying, should we be spending ARPA on broadband? And I think there's going to be federal money for broadband, and we just have to be ready to capture it.
It was acknowledged in some of the stimulus packages, and there's listeners that I know don't have broadband at their home. So when they say you're served, it's because that census block.
Which is a slap in the face to the reality. I mean, that's why when we mapped it originally, we went to town supervisors with maps and yellow highlighters and said, show us the roads that don't have it. And some areas have been filled in, but not everywhere. And it's not going to solve the 1,100-foot driveway.
No, there's a privilege to having a driveway of that, and you're going to suffer the consequence.
Right. Well, it's funny because people say, well, those are wealthy people who live up those driveways. And no, I don't think so. I know some not wealthy people who live up long driveways. I think we have to change the way we think about running cable or fiber up a driveway. Look, we would never let you build a house and give you a C of O if you came back and said, look, I didn't run electric. It was 1,100 feet. No! What are you talking about? So we have to change that. I don't know whether that's state code, state building code, or whether it's needs to be pushed federally, but it should be treated like the kind of infrastructure that water and electric is. You've got to have it or you can't live there.
There's a movement to declare that as a utility.
Utility, yeah.
At this point, it absolutely is a utility. We rely on that.
School, healthcare, your job, sounds like a utility to me. Yeah.
We have a really exciting project about to kick off in Saugerties. So we've been working with broadband fiber to the home company and ProSplice, and they're going to do a pilot program on Market and Elm Street. They're going to build it this spring.
Ooh, what's it going to do?
It's going to give the residents on those streets in Cross Street the opportunity to have an alternative to Verizon or Spectrum, where they can get a fiber to the home type internet product at their house. And the cost menu that they've presented to us is modest, I would argue, and cheap given the level of service, but this would be like a FiOS type system. The belief is if we build this, because it's an up and running entity, as those grant opportunities come down, we can extend that out of that.
Ooh, I love that.
Area and go into the areas that really could use the support. I'm excited about this because it's something we worked on for a long time. Mike McIsaac, a former board member, was really a powerful advocate to try to get something started in Saugerties, and it's going to happen. How fast we can get to the rural parts of town, I don't know.
Yeah.
And, so it's pretty exciting. Chris Richards is a local resident, part of a company that builds fiber networks all over the state, all over the Northeast, really. And they're excited to do it here. And I think this is going to be an opportunity and a little bit transformative, and just exciting. Can't wait to see that lit up.
Yeah, that's great. And there's also a lot of wireless technology now that can be, so I think there's going to be a lot of changes over the next 5 years.
Pushback on cell service, though, is incredible.
Right. People don't want it. They're afraid of it. Yeah. Yep.
We have 3 proposals for towers in Saugerties. One of them was the county, and they've all been met with local organized and rigid opposition. And I'm a little bit bothered by some of the science is not exactly scientific.
Right.
But there's clear concern. And obviously, we all understand the visual impact. That's plain, and we understand it.
Right.
But the science part, I think, falls into a category of its own. And but we all rely on our cell phones in a meaningful way.
Right, and it's definitely public safety.
It's definitely public safety.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
We're hopeful that we're going to get some place that everyone can agree to put in the needed towers. Something that I think gets understated is that capacity is a huge issue on the cell towers. Each cell tower has an infrastructure capability that it can handle, but there's such a proliferation of cell and data use now that those towers are just
Right. I have
overwhelmed.
3 teenagers all streaming video at the same time. We live right next to a cell tower, actually, in Rosendale. I'm right next to the cell tower at Ushiko. Yeah.
So you get fairly good service.
Yeah, I have really good service. It stays up all the time. It must be on a generator because even when there's no power. And before I bought the property, I had a crazy family member lend me like a EMF reader. I was like, okay, yeah, let me see what it says, and it was fine.
Well, that's a curious thing. Like the way that broadband sprays, if you're right next to it,
you're under
don't
it.
Get a lot.
Yeah.
You don't get an umbrella of it. It's
Yeah.
kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But folks don't accept that, and they
Right.
just think that it's cooking chicken in their brain.
I know.
So
I know. Yeah. So just going back to the numbers again, on sales tax, taxable sales, lodging and tourism and hospitality jumped 85% over the prior year. Kind of makes sense, right? Because people were visiting. Yeah. Internet sales has grown tremendously, but started to level out. You still see automobiles, gasoline, and automobiles repair in the top 10 categories of taxable sales in Ulster County, and that's a huge driver for sales tax. Huge. Even with like a backlog, because I understand like people are on waiting lists now to get vehicles, and there was supply chain issues. So
there's things happening in the car market that are just totally extraordinary. Some capital credit organizations will extend your lease payments as long as you provide that you're waiting for a car to come in. So they'll allow you-
that's good. That's
Yeah.
smart. I was wondering. I've never leased a car. I can't wrap my mind around that. I'm like, no, I want to drive this till it dies.
Yeah, it's pretty extraordinary though. I mean, normally when that lease is up, it's due at the thing or
That
they're gonna
day,
send out the
right.
collectors.
Right.
And now acknowledging that there's such a supply chain disruption, they're allowing terms that would extend those leases for up to 6 months. So that's pretty amazing.
My 17-year-old recently said to me, well, I'll never have a car. And I was like, well, don't be so sure. My car's paid off, and my parents helped me with my first car. You got to work for it, but, it may happen.
Young folks aren't as motivated to get their license.
No, he doesn't even care. He's like, where would I go? What would I do? And I'm like thinking, like, do I want a 17-year-old driving around? No.
It's a little nerve-wracking.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't wait. I was like, day one, permit, 16, sign up.
My older daughter couldn't wait. My younger daughter, Jill, wasn't as much of a rush. She's got it. She got it, but if she didn't, like Jack couldn't wait. Her 16th birthday was in the line getting her permit.
Yeah.
And 6 months later had her license, but it's nerve-wracking.
It is nerve-wracking as a parent. And right now, I mean, the roads are just insane. Albany Avenue is like, do you guys remember that game Moon Patrol? Do you know what I'm talking about, where you had to jump over the craters? I feel like I'm playing Moon Patrol every time I go.
I just came down to Albany Avenue. I was like, whew.
You cannot be in the right lane at all. You have to be in the left lane. It's amazing. And that's New York State, right? It's a state road. Yeah, so.
Well, and people don't want to hear that. Even in Village, people call me about Ulster Avenue. I'm like, it's not my road.
I saw a friend of mine in Saugerties post, I don't care whether it's town, county, or state, somebody fix my roads. I was like, ugh.
We were out last week cold patching, but now that's going to be irrelevant if the next storm that comes up, plows come through it. You're
taken out.
We just have to remember to be a little bit patient, because I know there was a pretty substantial pothole in a nice neighborhood.
Washington Ave in front of Trailways is like, you got to take it slow.
The weather was brutal.
It was really.
That extended period, and honestly the salt makes it worse because it allows the moisture to get further under the road, and it lifts it up, and then when that
Freezes
moisture
and
does leave,
pops it out.
Yeah,
I like to call it speed control.
Speed control, all right.
Nature speed bumps.
Go a little bit slower. Yeah. I'm really excited for spring. I can't wait. I'm looking at the garden. I'm thinking we're going to expand it. I'm planning out where my kids are going to help me put in the fence. They don't know that yet, but.
Oh boy. You're going to find your license real quick. Mom, I got to go.
They were really helpful on the fence the first time. This was right at the beginning of the pandemic. And I was like, hey, can you guys help me with these fence posts? And they were like, yeah, sure. And I was like, who are you?
Yeah, good for you.
They were so bored. They were like, yeah, we'll smash in fence posts. Sounds fun.
When I was a kid, my mom had a big garden, and I used to hate it because we weed.
Go out there and work.
I
Yeah.
hate this damn thing. But now.
You're like, one of those tomatoes, what I wouldn't give.
I'm going to have a little tomato plant this year.
Yeah.
It's fun.
It is fun. It's hard to make the time, but if you put in all of the time in like May and June, then you can kind of relax a little bit in July and coast a little bit. Yeah. So
it just makes those gatherings when you're all together and you're harvesting at a garden next door. It's really cool.
Right.
Fresh vegetables is great.
I know. Did you guys talk about the Saugerties national news?
No, we did not.
No.
My sister called me from D.C. You know, she went to Saugerties High School. She's a producer at CNN. She's like, Saugerties in the headlines. And I wrote back, I was like, that's West Saugerties to you. But
I got it from people all over the country, like for IBM, I deal, and
Yeah.
people, is that your Saugerties?
Is that your town? You're like, no, that's the town. I'm the village. We don't have that kind of stuff in the
ones
village.
that own that.
Oh, what a tragic case all around. No matter what the story is, it's
Right.
just bad news, and I feel bad for everybody involved.
I felt, and I'll probably get criticism for this, I felt the news made it seem a lot worse than it was, as far as, like, this child wasn't being trafficked, they weren't being kept under that staircase. She was with her natural parents.
She was in good health.
She was in good health, but she was neglected because she didn't go to school and things like that.
Go to the doctor.
But I mean, compared to some of these other missing child cases, and again, our police did a phenomenal job taking care of it. I applaud them. I think it was great. I just think the news kind of.
I think there was something sensational about the photography that just blew people open.
Exactly
I don't know why. It's like you
Exactly
could
it.
show a picture of a child who's malnourished, and it doesn't necessarily motivate people that way, but there was something about that photo of the stairs that just like blew people's minds.
But then they show a picture of the outside of the house. It was a decent.
A normal
nice
house,
normal
jungle gym. I know, very strange.
That's why I just felt the news kind of exactly the photographs sensationalized the actual conditions of the situation.
It's so hard to know what's going to be viral. I mean, you guys see this on social media. You post something, you think it's great, nobody pays any
cares.
attention
Yeah.
to it, and then you like make a passing comment about something dumb and everybody's on it, and you're like, what? I don't understand. Some of it's like the time of day that something launches. What else is in the cycle, right? Maybe there was no other exciting news for that, period, for that 1 hour that it first launched, or 2 hours. It's very strange. Yeah, it's very hard to predict.
Well, yeah, it's like I go through this with, funny you say it, with residents, like, and I won't bring them, but say there's something going on in the village that's maybe controversial to some people. There's nothing else in the news right then. That's the big topic on Facebook. And I'll tell the people who are being, devastated by this, listen, by next week, people aren't going to care about that. Whether it's a building permit for something or the old dragging in, what's being done there. Remember when she was having trouble with the permits?
Yeah.
There's nothing else in the news. All of a sudden, everybody's on the bandwagon. Why is this? A week later, they're on to the next topic. So it's what's new today, But this one, I mean, I called the chief up. I called him 11:15 on that, like Wednesday night. I said, I like to watch my news at night, relax.
And I don't want to see my town on the news.
And I got to see your picture on the news, talking. I said, Chief, I just turned 3 channels and you're on every channel. I don't need this 11:15 at night.
Hard to get some sleep after.
I see you all day. I don't need to see all my nightly news, relaxing time.
The PD did a great job.
They did, absolutely.
Detective Thiel was really the one
who figured it out.
Yeah.
He noticed the screws being different on the staircase.
That's amazing, really.
Yeah.
It is.
And
Yeah.
what would, it's a high anxiety situation. They had been in the home for a while. They didn't find what they were looking for. And he was using the Bilco door to go back to the car to collect equipment that they thought they might need. And all of a sudden he's like, those screws are different. Yeah. And,
that was cool.
It was good.
Yeah.
And agreed, given the menu of opportunity of things that could have been, this was a better menu than that, at least, but it's still...
people commented me on, people from all over the country, the biggest kick they got out is that the cops took it for a Happy Meal. They thought that was the coolest thing, that they took the time.
I'm like,
to
is
take care of
McDonald's going to write a check to Saugerties PD? Because I think they should.
Right?
Right?
That got the biggest attention from a lot of people, saying how thoughtful that was.
Well, it makes it relatable. You're like, oh, yeah, I can understand. I understand the kid wanting something. I understand the officer, like, feeling that endearment, to give her something back, But it's...
Ryan just came out of the county program, working with Mr. Ymca.
Yeah.
And, clearly he's matured significantly because of that experience. And is able to handle that situation with a different professional level.
Right.
So it's just a tremendous resource for sorties. Those collaborative arrangements in policing,
definitely
they are
good.
the best.
I really enjoy working with Commissioner Ioposi. We put together a report on emergency housing. It was looking back at 2020 expenditures, but we do spend a lot of money to keep people in hotels when it's an emergency basis. And so I had people in the community asking, like, why are we doing that instead of like getting them a real apartment? And it's just the funding streams that are available for emergency housing are not available for long-term housing, and it's not all county money. It's very complicated and difficult. I notice, the American Rescue Plan Committee of the legislature is meeting tonight. There's a resolution on there to buy the Elizabeth Manor home in Esopus that was just put up for sale. It's a group home. We kind of denigrate single room occupancy housing over the last 30 years, but there's an important place for that, right? You're a single person, you don't need a whole house, maybe you want to be part of a community, I don't know what the county's useful for that exactly will be, but it's just, we spend a lot of money on it, and I think every time I'm on your show, we talk about housing, every single time.
It's a huge issue, it's kind of a backbone in many ways. You can't have the economic success that you need because not everybody's going to be able to afford housing in this market doing an entry-level job. It's just not going to work. If you're a single parent, male or female, housing is going to be a huge impact on your budget. So, the opportunities to have housing that's affordable are limited, and the demand for that is off the charts.
Median home sale price between 2017 and 2021, according to NICE, or New York State Association of Realtors, up 56% for Ulster. I think it's up 50. I was like, that's it? I thought it would be up more. It felt like it's up 100%, but no, it's 56% from 2017 till the close of 2021. That's amazing.
I know, but that says a lot. You could count over the past 4 or 5 years the number of homes that sold for over $1 million. There were a handful.
Right. That's why this is median and not average, but still, it's...
Yeah, I can recall 3 or 4 sales of Sorghum's of over $1 million, and that would never happen. Right. That was like a once every 10 years event.
I mean, the bottom line is we really need to build housing. And I know people are concerned about building and about development. We have to figure out where we're going to put it. We have to do it because we have to replace the units that we lose to other things. And we may wind up with half of Queens moving here the next Hurricane Sandy.
Sure. Yeah. It's and the demand for second homes is still going up. And we understand it. We don't take for granted where we live and how beautiful it is and the opportunities that it gives. So, that people come here and fall in love with it. Makes sense.
And they want to live here, like my father did. My father was an IBMer who was sent up here in the 70s, and he worked for Big Blue for a second, decided I'm quitting my job, moving to a commune, and becoming a florist.
Good for him.
I know, right?
Yeah. Good for him.
Yeah, that was not his culture, but it was IBM that brought us here, and we were from the city, so.
That's courageous, though. Can you have a family? You just feel that obligation to make sure everybody has what they need.
I know.
You hate your job, but you need it.
Not today, you can't do that.
No.
I know. Well, I don't know. So many of these younger people are doing it. This big giant quit.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm begging my people to stay. I'm like, flexible schedule, whatever. What do you hate doing? We'll just make sure you don't have to do that anymore, both at the store and at work.
Well, even with IBM right now, now they're starting, we had an announcement yesterday, going back to the sites, which I haven't been on site in 20 years, but even our CEO's like, it's up to you. We're going to open them. We're not forcing anybody back right now. I think they're going to go back to, because for a long time IBM was flexible, and then 2 years ago they went to try to push everybody back in the office just before COVID. So that lasted about a year, then COVID hit and everybody's back home again. Yeah. And I think it increases flexibility, increases productivity, without question.
I think there's a lot of evidence that we figured out how to work remotely and still be productive.
Right.
I mean, you're saving, for me, if I had to go to Poughkeepsie, it's 2 hours a day out of my time in the car.
I just don't like when my cat gets right in front of the Zoom and then turns around and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to be on a meeting.
I've had that happen many times. My cats are part of my meetings sometimes.
Thanks for having me on, you guys.
It is always a pleasure.
Yes.
Glad you took time to be out with us. We're at the top of the hour, so we're going to take a break, and we'll be back with Kevin Cahill when we return.
You're listening to Kingston Community Radio on WGHQ Kingston. On your radio at 920 AM and 92.5 FM, and also online at mykcr.org.
Hi, I'm Kelsey Grammer. Wounded Warrior Project supports injured veterans by connecting them with fellow warriors, by serving them through mental health and wellness programs, and by empowering them to live on their own terms. No one should face a battle alone. Join us at woundedwarriorproject.org.
We are lions. We bring hope where it's needed. We are a global force for good. Support causes that matter. Change lives. Change communities. Change the world. We can do more together than we can alone. Join in. Experience the joy of serving. Be part of the movement. Give back. Let's unite the world for good. We are Lions. You can be too. Visit weserve.org.
Have you ever experienced a wish come true? For a child battling a critical illness, a wish come true can be a turning point. One song, one dance, one game, one adventure, one moment changes everything. Make-A-Wish needs your support to grant the wish of every eligible child. Visit wish.org now to help grant more life-changing wishes. Together, we can transform lives, one wish at a time.
This is the story of Daniel, who was born 2 months early. His lungs weren't ready. His heart wasn't ready. His parents could only hope that one day he would leave the hospital healthy, and they would all live happily ever after. Daniel's is just one of the more than 500,000 stories of babies born prematurely last year. You can help the March of Dimes stop premature birth and bring more babies home healthy. Learn how at marchofdimes.com. Working together for stronger, healthier babies.
Hi, my name is Jackie Lovezzo. I'm from Lake Katrine, and I support the Kingston Community Radio because it is an invaluable resource to the community and its residents.
This portion of Kingston Community Radio is brought to you by Ulster Savings Bank. Visit their newest branch, conveniently located at the Ulster Commons Plaza in Lake Katrine. Experience the difference that local community banking offers with the convenience of another great location, easy access, plenty of parking, and a 24-hour ATM. Ulster Savings Bank, invested in community, invested in you. Member FDIC.
Thank you, Lawrence, and we are back at the 8 o'clock half hour here. We'll be joined shortly by Assemblyman Kevin Cahill. In the meantime, we have a little bit of housekeeping. We have a couple of announcements and some birthdays. I'll start with an announcement for the New York State Varsity High School Championship. This event is being held at the Kiwanis Ice Arena at 6 Smallwood Avenue in Cantine Field. The tournament commences on Friday, February 25th, and runs through Sunday, February 27th. There is no public skating for any of these 3 days. This is a varsity high school level tournament with 5 teams from Long Island and 3 teams from the Hudson Valley area. The teams from Long Island include St. Anthony's, Chinnacock, Sayville, East Islip, North Huntington, Kings Park, and Comac. Representing the Hudson Valley are teams from John Jay, Arlington, and FDR high schools. There is no charge for admission. If you're looking for some top-notch varsity sports, come to this Kiwanis Ice Arena at February 25th and 27th.
That's a state tournament? That's pretty cool. That's awesome.
We get it once in a while. And the Sororities team is making a really nice run, the girls team. They won a close game over the weekend. And I don't know when the championship is, but it's
nice.
1-2.
Yeah, Kingston Community Radio. Yeah, static. Kingston Community Radio and Elks Lodge. Just
picking up static.
A lot of static.
The gain's probably too high.
No, it's just because Hang on a second, people. Lawrence is on it. All right. Kingston Community Radio and Elks Lodge.
Close to this mic. Try now.
Kingston Community Radio and Elks Lodge, 5:50 Team Up for Breakfast, live remote. Tuesday, March 29th from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Kingston Elks Lodge at 143 Hurley Avenue. Cost is $10. Breakfast includes eggs, pancakes, bacon, sausage, coffee, and juice. Kingston Community Radio will be broadcasting live that morning with Cameron Rylands and Nina Postupak. I know. I just never pronounce her name right. I'm sorry, Nina. Doing a normal show from that location. So come join us on March 29th from 7 to 9 a.m. Kingston Elks Lodge, 143 Hurley Avenue. All are welcome, and it should be a great time.
2 nice events, and then we have a birthday.
We have a birthday, and it looks like I wrote this one, which I didn't, but my handwriting.
Dr. Murphy?
Dr. Murphy. Happy birthday to Kathy Esposito, love family, friends, and looks like Olivia. Nanny, happy birthday. So, happy birthday, Kathy Esposito, from your family, friends, and Olivia.
Great. So we don't have any drama because we only have one birthday submission. So
the winner is
Kathy Esposito. You are the recipient of a cow pie from Boyce Dairy Milk House and Kingston Community Radio. Boyce Dairy Milk House is on 62 O'Neill Street in Kingston, New York, and they are the daily sponsor of a cow pie for our listeners. So get your birthdays announcements in, and we certainly don't want any cow pie to go to waste. So get them in, and thank you to Boyce's. We didn't do a moo.
Moo.
There we go.
Moo.
That was a very enthusiastic one. I'm just saying.
The little moo thing in here is broke. I gotta find new batteries for it. It takes these. It doesn't take like regular AAA or AA. It takes these little like calculator batteries.
Yep,
So I can't find one, and now I don't have a moo call anymore.
That's okay. We muddled through it, figured it out. But grateful for Marge coming on with us this morning. She's always full of information and very enthusiastic.
Good news today.
Yeah. In a moment, we will be joined by our Assemblyman, Kevin Cahill, which exciting news. He will be our representative once again.
Yeah.
After the election this fall.
Well, might as well be. It's the only one I go to anyways.
That's so part of a discussion yesterday, and they were talking about the assembly race. I'm like, well, not for nothing. Kevin's kind of half represented Sargates for a long time anyway.
I always go to his office first anyways.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
So it should be, it's a welcome news, and Bill and I both agree. So it should be exciting.
It just makes sense.
It does make sense. I like the idea that there's more continuity for Ulster County.
Yep. And I get it. I mean, not everybody can have their assemblyman located in their backyard. But, you know, for 11 years, my assemblyman been all the way up past Cooperstown.
Yeah.
You know, and
I think they did their best to represent us. However,
right. Oh no, I'm not saying they didn't, but it's just the convenience factor.
Yeah, and the issues that many of their communities face are different than communities that are part on the Hudson Valley, on the river.
Yep.
You know, I know during the flooding issue, during Irene, the impacts to the mountain communities were significantly different than the impacts that we experienced being on the river and at the foot of the Catskills. And there was to get that conversation started, there was a period of explanation and education that had to go along with it. So having someone who experienced the same thing we did is just that much more personal. Welcome.
Gentlemen, I half heard what you were talking about.
Nice things about you.
Okay, well, that's good.
We're excited about the proposed change. Well, it's official change now, correct?
It is official. I don't know what the courts have done with it. I know that somebody brought an action against the Senate districts and the congressional districts, but so far as I know, no one has taken the assembly districts. And it's interesting because I've talked to many of my Republican colleagues, and they are thoroughly thrilled with the maps. They feel like they have that the communities that are represented now, that they will be representing in January, are more representative than they were before. And that was the watchword of what we did in the assembly in very short time, because we only had literally a couple of days to come to a conclusion on this.
I agree with that. You know, there's I think there's a continuity with the geography being more centralized.
Yeah.
It is helpful. You know, it's helpful for the folks trying to represent that district, and it's helpful for the community leaders in those districts to have that individual to rely upon. So
I think that the demographers were vindicated a little bit this year from the decision they made 20 years ago to include parts of Northern Dutchess in this community, in the Assembly District, because this year the towns of Red Hook and Rhinebeck are in the Assembly 103rd District, Senator Hinchy's district is at 46, and also in the 19th Congressional District. In addition, the Congressman Delgado will be representing, should he win a re-election, will be representing Milan and Clinton, and literally just a street in Hyde Park. Because, the congressional maps have to be drawn to a single person. You can't draw them like in a plus or minus anything. They have to be drawn to an exactly, if we have 26 districts in New York State, they have to be 26 100% equal districts according to the previous census.
Each congressperson has the exact same number of constituents.
Absolutely not, but that's the theory. The theory is that they will have absolutely the same number of people as were recorded in the census. Now, we know how inaccurate the census is to start with. We also know how people live and die and move, so it doesn't make sense that 2 years later we have to have that level of exactitude. But that's what it is. So what we do wind up with in congressional districts in particular, and believe me, everybody tries not to, but we do find ourselves dividing towns and sometimes stopping in the middle of a street. So, but the fact that the Northern Dutchess communities are now part of all three districts will give us such an important opportunity to work together. Not saying anything was wrong with the relationships I have with the senators in the other districts, but right now, for the first time in my time in office, I will represent, assuming I get reelected, I will represent a district that is represented by a single New York State senator. That has never happened before. Right, currently, I represent a district that has 4 New York State senators in it. Maybe even 5 if I do the math, if I figure it all out. But I think this is a really good sign for us to work together and do things that are intentionally regional, focused on our communities the way they are, and really get things done. So I am thrilled about having Saugerties added to the district. I am thrilled about my colleagues being able to potentially represent Northern Dutchess along with me. And they're going to find out the same thing that I knew all along, and that is that Northern Dutchess and this portion of Ulster County are really one whole community.
Oddly, retail has taught us that. Same folk, if you live in Red Hook, it's likely to shop at our retail centers here.
I am as likely to be seen walking the aisles in Williams Lumber and Rhinebeck as I am Herzog's in Kingston Plaza, and occasionally True Value in Saugerties.
You're going to see the same folks. And,
yeah.
I think that's just a reflection on how our communities live in a similar capacity, and we suffer the same ills and same benefits every day.
So some of the other benefits that we all have is that the three of us will also be representing SUNY New Paltz, SUNY Ulster, and Bard College.
Good for the colleges.
It's good for us because those colleges are repositories. They're repositories of activist young people. They're repositories of people of great knowledge and who are very studious. And they are cultural institutions. You know, you have one of probably the biggest art gallery in Ulster County is the Dorsky in New Paltz. And of course, we all know the famous attributes of Bard College. And SUNY Ulster is nothing to sneeze at either. It's a real college now. I don't know the last time somebody's been out there, but it's a real college now. I also represent Dutchess County Community College, although not physically. Certainly, the students who go there, not as many go there as folks from the southern part of the county, of Dutchess County, but I do represent it, and I spend a lot of time thinking and working with the chancellor of the state university to try to find ways to improve the community college experience, because there's a lot that's problematic about it right now. I am very concerned about the rate with which people leave successfully. That is, either matriculate, graduate, go on to a job for which they had specific training, and it is scarily low. And not just Ulster and Dutchess, the whole community college system.
Trying to figure it out, so to speak.
We have a couple of tells already. We know that the students coming into the community college go there with a couple of issues. Sometimes they are not. They don't leave their secondary school, their high school, with the training they need to succeed in a college environment. That is, they don't have some of the basic skills, so the college remediates. That's one thing the college is doing a lot of, and honestly, they're being told not to, but I think if they didn't, many people would be deprived of a college education. The other thing we have is, why does somebody go to community college? And some people go to community college because it offers the programs they want, and that's great. But some people also go to community college because they have to deal with other life issues. They have to take care of a family. They have to earn their own keep. They can't live in a dorm. There's 101 issues why somebody might be there that are peripheral to the education but impactful on the education. So getting our arms around all those issues is very significant, and it's what I quiz the interim chancellor about, and it's what I will talk to the permanent chancellor about when he or she comes on board. One idea that I'm floating, and I'm talking about it with great regularity. Thank you, Don Christian, for suggesting it. Don hails from the Midwest, and Wisconsin just developed a plan where every single two-year college, every single two-year public college is directly affiliated, in fact, under the auspices of the local four-year public college. So essentially, SUNY Ulster, SUNY Dutchess, SUNY Sullivan, and SUNY Orange would conceivably become part of SUNY New Paltz. And it's not just that they would cooperate between taking students in and having transfer credits, it's that they would actually run as a single school, and it would become sort of a mini university with a direct tie-in so that the folks, I'll give you one short, very great example. Several years ago, now probably going on a decade, possibly even more, SUNY New Paltz decided to stop their registered nurse graduate program and their registered nurse bachelor's program. The consequence of that is that we suffered a significant nursing shortage in the Hudson Valley, but that we also suffered a loss of nursing instructors. Mount St. Mary College provides a great training and education for people that want to get their RN, but not everybody can afford to go there, and it's also a somewhat limited program. It's a great program, by the way, and it does good things. But SUNY Ulster was prepared to step up to the plate and offer those programs, except that a significant portion of them would have had to have been taught remotely, and that's not conducive to a registered nurse program. Had Ulster and New Paltz been able to not even collaborate, but if they were able to operate as a single unit, we could have continued our nursing program here in Ulster County and not ever suffered that loss. So that's one example.
I remember the effort to salvage it, but
I can never quite get an answer. Don Christian, who I have a great relationship, and I wish him well in his retirement. And unfortunately, he's moving to Plattekill, so he will no longer be a constituent in January because I won't be representing Plattekill anymore. But Don Christian and his predecessors, I've approached each one of them about the program, and they all seem interested in restarting it, and they don't seem to have a reason that is clearly enunciated as to why it left. I think part of it was that attracting nursing faculty is very difficult. I think also that it didn't quite fit in. It was maybe just a hair over the line of being too vocational for the New Paltz Teachers College. I'm saying that sarcastically.
But that's a fair point. I mean, we developed the infrastructure around that. Something a little bit different.
But two wonderful human beings that lived here for a very long time and were prominent in society and very benevolent to many, many entities. Edward and Louis Resnick contributed a great deal of money, millions of dollars actually, to SUNY New Paltz to develop the nursing program, and even just as a tribute to them, I think we ought to get the program up and running. But certainly we should do it because it's an important career choice for a lot of people, and it is a dire need. We have a continuous and an ongoing need for nurses, so much so that we who make policy sit around and have to decide what we're going to take away from the responsibility of nurses because there's not enough of them. I hesitate to do it every time I say we're fixing the wrong end of the problem, but what are we going to give to a less skilled person? What are we going to give to a person with less training? And that rubs me the wrong way to have to think about doing something like that.
But that's a reflection of the inventory of nursing. And that's such a complicated thing, though, because there's also wage penalization working here versus south of here.
There is.
And so
There is, and there's also job stability here because we've seen Westchester Medical Center really not bat an eye about laying off people with 30, 35 years experience, people who were at every level of supervision and every level of direct care. They really decimated healthcare around here, and I wish they didn't, and I understand some of the reasons why they do. I believe that the state of New York could prevent it, and I've called upon two health commissioners to take action. I'm awaiting information from the second one, Dr. Bassett, who I approached at our budget hearing just 2 weeks ago with the very same subject about staffing at our local hospitals, in particular on the behavioral health unit. And I had a commitment that they will get back to me. I then took it up with Governor Hochul personally, and she assured me that she is working on a solution, that it is a problem statewide, particularly in the area of behavioral health. But I think there's a lot more we can do with the enforcement of the certificate of need, the license that Westchester Medical Center has to operate a hospital in our community. But again, a lot of this would be relieved if we had a steady stream of well-trained and qualified nurses coming out of a four-year college around here to fill all those positions and to assure people that the health they were getting was going to be professional and quality.
There's obviously there's a clear impact here that we all are articulating pretty openly to this morning, but nursing is a crisis across the country, and I know there's per diem opportunities for many of the folks that work here to go work for a 6-month contract in another part of the country. The compensation for that is very, very attractive. We saw it.
We saw it right here during COVID, where contract nursing services were being paid factors, multiples of what the nurses on the line who were there every single day were being paid. And that's got to be a little disheartening too.
Sure, there's got to be a demoralizing component to that, right? We're doing the same job, and you're making what you're making, and we're making what I'm making, and suffering the consequences of the management that I'm mad at.
Right. So it's a problem that I agree is a nationwide problem, but certainly we can solve it here in our community, because one thing we know about people who go to college around here, many of them stay around here. Sure. You know, that's what they like to do. If I was talking to my friend Anna Kellis, who represents Ithaca and Cornell University, and one of the things she commented on was the fact that, you know, so many people don't leave the Cornell community after they graduate, that they have become the population of places like Ithaca and the surrounding communities, that you have this collective IQ that's someplace up in the clouds. You know, it's not
a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing. No, and it shows itself in their local economy. They have the most stable economy in the state of New York, and the same would be true here. If we set, and we're trying to do it in other disciplines at New Paltz as well. We're trying to make sure that the folks who are graduating from the science, engineering, and technology programs don't just have the tools of today, or as is often the case, and I witnessed this at another state university, not New Paltz, the tools of yesterday. I walked through one of the state university schools where the science lab was bragging about having all the cast-offs from the New York State Police Lab, and I said, gee, shouldn't it be the other way around? I mean, shouldn't we be training our workers for tomorrow with tomorrow's equipment and not yesterday's equipment? And
yeah, you can put that on.
So I was thrilled that was not the case in New Paltz, and it was not the case in a few other schools as well, Buffalo State, and I saw a couple other state university schools that really were state of the art, and so we're trying to make sure that the people that come out of our school are qualified to contribute back into the community right away, whether that's in nursing, whether it's in tech, wherever they are. You know, we also are trying to make sure that the kids going to the school are trained. So one of the things that we do is we have a science program that we do through the Benjamin Center that puts equipment in every school, elementary, middle, and high school, that familiarizes the kids with the tools that they might become accustomed to using once they're in a SUNY Tech program. And we're hoping that we're creating a whole community of people who are ready for that kind of education. And we learned that from Rhinebeck, the Rhinebeck School District, again, because we're part of the same community. When the Rhinebeck Science Foundation built a science lab, it transformed kids in that school. And we're hoping to do the same school by school.
I know you've worked hard to get some resources for the Sargi School.
That
Well,
that
it
includes.
hasn't been your district.
I did it anyway. I was able to shoehorn it in. Yeah, yeah.
It just creates opportunities that are fantasy otherwise. So that's terrific.
So, but it's good to see you. I missed you 2 weeks ago. I forget what the holdup was. I think I had to be in Albany for a 9:30 committee meeting, and I couldn't really. I tried to call, but I had the same problem that Billy McKenna had on the phone, and I couldn't hear a thing. So you might have been talking to me on the air, but my radio and my phone, you can't use them both at the same time. So
It's not going to work. It'll be all feedback.
not just that, but it's just the same sound system. So I ended up not being able to hear any. Usually you hear it on hold or you hear it on the other end of the phone, but I couldn't hear anything. I finally gave up around Catskill, and I just said, okay, I'm not going to be. I said, you're on your own.
Okay, it's good to have you back. It's always better when you're in the studio anyway. You bring us food, and I find the dialogue to be much more flowing. So it's good.
It's often even better when I'm not here and my staff comes in with the food, and they're
Some of you do hire well. I'll give you that.
Yeah, well, Gabby Madden now is a deputy chief of staff for Senator Skoufis, and she's doing great work there. We stay in touch. So many of the other folks that have been through the turnstiles in my office are in many, many places. I was gratified the other night. We held the Democratic County Convention, and shortly after Ashley Dittis was renominated for her position as a county elections commissioner, she nominated me for the 103rd Assembly District, and she nominated me from the perspective of somebody whose first public job was in my office.
Did she really?
Yeah.
It does give you a point of pride because you do have
does.
a nice
Yeah.
legacy of folks that have come through your office and moved on and have done great work on their own. So
People are concerned. They say, "Oh, Kevin, you go through a lot of people." I said, "Yeah, but look where they are.
Yeah,
You know,
it's
look at who they are. You know, we're often the first step for a lot of people, and literally dozens of people are out there doing good community service in the government, out of government. Some are in the Biden administration. Others are running really nationally respected organizations. Brian Shapiro, former county legislator from Woodstock. I mean, he didn't work in the office, but his partner in protecting animals around the country, Bill Ketzer, did work in my office. And when you talk to one, it's like talking to both.
Yeah, they're powerful advocates for that.
Yeah, and so I'm proud of pretty much. I can't think of anybody who came through my office that the young people that came through the office and then moved on to something else that haven't made us proud. So, and it was great to have Ashley recount that. Although she did sneak in her speech that one of the reasons they all leave, right before the end, she said, we do all that stuff, but for Kevin, it's never enough. So.
All right, so Lawrence is giving us the finger in a positive way, telling us we had a minute left, about a minute ago. So I guess we're going to go to a break. We'll be back in a few minutes, and we'll still have Kevin Cahill. I'm Fred Costello and Bill Murphy. Mayor of Sargis is with us this morning as well.
You're listening to Kingston Community Radio on WGHQ Kingston. On your radio at 920 AM and 92.5 FM, and also online at mykcr.org.
We are Lions. We bring hope where it's needed, support causes that matter, change lives, change communities, change the world. Visit lionsclubs.org to learn more.
Introducing the YMCA. Sure, you know the Y for a swim or a game of hoops, but we're more than that. We're a cause. When you take a jump shot at the Y, someone else is getting job training. Practice yoga as a team practices her leadership skills. We give people of all ages, incomes, and backgrounds a chance to learn, grow, and thrive. So while you might think of the Y as the place for lifting weights, we're also about lifting entire communities. That's the Y. We're so much more. Visit ymca.net/more.
Long ago, you wouldn't think of galloping on a horse while doing calligraphy, and you wouldn't have attempted to ride your bike while typing a letter. Yet you think you can safely operate a multi-ton vehicle while texting? Behind the wheel is no place to multitask. If you want to BRB, drive now and text later. Lives depend on it.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org, a message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light,
noise, and the Ad Council.
To battle is to fight, to struggle, to overcome, and ultimately for the Marine Corps, it means to win. There is no alternative. It's not just a statement of intent. It's a promise to our nation. A promise kept for more than 2 centuries. A promise of the Marines.
Hi, this is Jared Mans from the Spring Lake Fire Department, and I support Kingston Community Radio, and so should you.
This portion of Kingston Community Radio is brought to you by Ulster Savings Bank. Visit their newest branch, conveniently located at the Ulster Commons Plaza in Lake Katrine. Experience the difference that local community banking offers with the convenience of another great location, easy access, plenty of parking, and a 24-hour ATM. Ulster Savings Bank, invested in community, invested in you. Member FDIC.
I'm 56, that's young.
Thank you, Lawrence, and we are back. We are joined this morning with Mayor Murphy from the Village of Saugerties. I'm Fred Costello, Supervisor for Saugerties. And we have our Assemblyman Kevin Cahill.
We can actually say he's our Assemblyman, Kevin Cahill.
Not quite yet. Not quite yet.
Soon to be our official Assemblyman.
It'd be good. Do I start getting paid for doing all those things we've been doing all these years?
Yes. You didn't get those checks from your
I never got those checks. Good point, though, on the reimbursement from the state and federal government for the emergency that was declared last week. And you and I should talk offline about it because we should pursue it. I'm not saying that our communities are hurting for money right now. The good management of the local leaders has made it so that we're actually in a surplus situation in most communities right now. But this disaster, pile on top of it the high cost of fuel and what that means to communities, and pile on top of that a couple more storms that I heard Bill bemoaning when I first turned into it. You're not going to. It stops. It stops in what's that town? What's that hamlet called?
Saugerties?
No, between West Saugerties and Toodalum town. Everything stops there.
Yeah,
Right.
Centerville is going to be rain and balmy.
Toodalum was on my dry cleaning route when my brother used to deliver uniforms.
Was it really?
Oh yeah.
Cross garage?
Yeah. And we would go up to Woodstock and we would pick up Dr. Berg's dry cleaning and a few other people's dry cleaning. Then we'd scoot down through Saugerties and we'd hit that garage and deliver their uniforms. Then we'd hit a restaurant, deliver some rugs, and we had a circuit. And
pretty cool.
That was the North Circuit. Then we had the West Circuit, which brought us down to Ellenville, and then we had the South Circuit, which brought us down, down East Opus, Rosendale, New Paltz Way. But somehow or another, my brother, who had just recently returned from Vietnam at the time, was able to end the route every single day at Uncle Willie's, the well in Rosendale.
Stop somewhere.
Always figure out a way to do that.
Was that really Uncle Willie's on Broadway?
That was the same Uncle Willie, yeah.
He's great. Oh, God.
And it was not even open yet. It was when Billy Gouldy opened his first bar, and before they, well, I guess it's okay to say now, before they actually had their license, and they were statute of limitations times 50. But they were cleaning up the place, so we would go in there, and I was a kid, and we would go in there. My brother would belly up, and he'd have a can of beer with the 3 other guys at 1:00 in the afternoon, because that's when we finished that particular route. And while he was doing that, Billy would hand me a bucket and a scrub brush, and he'd say, "Go down and get the soot off the walls downstairs." And that's what I did. That was my job. But we uncovered murals in the place that if you go into the Alternative Baker right now, you can still see some of the murals on the wall. And you can also see a picture of a very long-haired Kevin Cahill standing there later on, a couple years later.
Painted picture?
No, a photograph. Yeah. I think it was actually a guy from Saugerties that took it. I'm not 100% certain about that. There was a big gathering in front of Uncle Willie's, in front of the well, at the time, and it was psychedelically painted, and everybody had hair flowing and beards out to here, and it looked like a picture from some religious from some hippie commune, and which it was. Rosendale was a hippie commune when I hung there, and I don't know what the exact occasion was. It could have been Willie's candidacy for the presidency. It could have been Willie's candidacy for mayor of the village, but we all gathered in front of the place, and then somebody snapped it, and it's now hanging on the wall at the Alternative Baker. So cool. I challenge people to go in and pick me out. Hint number one, I didn't have gray hair. So
that's cool.
But yeah, we used to have a route that would go to Toodlem, and
that's a good way to live.
What was that on? Is that off 212?
Yeah, it's the Lizette Bus Garage.
That's veteran. Veteran, yes.
Which was that Carl, he kind of coined that, and had no identity, and essentially at the time created the zip code, and that's how that little bit came to be. So it's a good litmus test for folks that think they know a lot about Sorgers. If you throw that out there and they can tell you where it is, they're pretty much credible.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's the thing. If somebody says they're from Saugerties, you know they're not really from Saugerties, because nobody's from Saugerties. Where are you from? I'm from Berkeley Heights. Where are you from? I'm from Mount Marion. Where are you from? Blue Mountain. Where are you from? I'm from.
Unless you're born and raised in a village.
No, then you say you're from the village.
Oh, true. But
you don't say you're from Saugerties. You say I'm from the village.
All right.
And nobody lives in Saugerties. Everybody lives in a hamlet.
I married out of town. I married Glasgow.
Oh my goodness. Did you have your papers to go there when you went to propose?
I almost did. It's the truth though, because it's funny. Like when I met my wife in the 90s, I mean, I was past. But back in the 70s, like my brother and my wife's father were 2 days apart in school, and my brother's a village boy and her father's a Glasgow, and they didn't like each other. I mean, back in the 70s, village boys weren't allowed to date Glasgow girls. I mean, that was. But I played into it even in the 90s. Like when I first started dating, I had to meet him, and I still remember the day Dave Bracco christened me as an official member of Glasgow.
You were allowed in Glasgow now without papers?
As one of the people, yes. And to me, that was a cool thing, because I always, I don't know, I always respected that difference between the village and Glasgow, and,
What about those poor people that live right on the line between Glasgow and Berkeley Heights? That's got to be tough.
They're no man's.
That's tough. Yeah. That's tough. There's a couple of houses right on 9W. Who are they? They're not even Glen Eyrie. What's Glen Eyrie? I mean, Glen Eyrie is sort of half Ulster, half Saugerties. So
I'm proud to be a member of the Glasgow Society. No question about it.
There you go.
I always wanted to be Italian, so I married Italian.
How many actual hamlets are there in Saugerties? Yeah, but besides that,
hamlets, because you have Asbury, you have
Alden, West Park,
you have
Blue Mountain,
Mount Marion. I mean, there's ones, Centerville.
I want to say there's 14.
I bet you.
I bet you there's 14.
Great.
I think you should.
Enough to be a mountain if you're West.
You should talk to Lawrence about giving somebody a cow pie who can name every hamlet in Saugerties. That's not a thing. That's not a thing, folks.
Yeah.
But yeah. I'll chip in with you. We'll buy it for the. Yeah. But who's gonna be the arbiter? You're gonna have the town historian be the final arbiter of whether somebody named all the hamlets?
You get Vern on that.
Yeah, we'll get Vern on that.
Vernon. Yeah. Well, I mean, Vernon might add a couple extras.
Yeah, but he has some pretty unique stories.
Vernon christens some parts of the woods as hamlets. We know that part.
He benefited from his dad though, because his dad was the truant officer forever.
Oh yeah.
He just picked me up.
Yeah, and he knew. He knew you were.
He drove around.
Or you even had to say anything.
He drove around this old blue 2-door Dodge Dart, and he looked like Mr. Magoo.
By the way, my favorite car.
And he would pick you up, like if you're skipping, he'd be like, Murph, get in the car. And then we go someplace, have breakfast, and they're like, all right, you ready to go back to school? I mean, he was like the old school truant officer. Like he'd sit there and talk to you. Why are you skipping school today? Well, my buddy's up in the woods, or come on. I'm not going to tell your parents. Just let's go have some breakfast before you get back to school. He was a legend. I don't think he's even a paid truant officer. I think he just did it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know.
I bet he got paid. He probably got paid by the head. You kidding me?
He was just.
He would have been wealthy if he got paid by the head.
But he had that blue car, man, and he just. Oh my God, it was funny. He was a legend. Absolute legend.
He could talk to anyone. He was a pretty special person. But that gave Vernon a really good perspective because he got exposed to
everybody.
He grew up everyone.
Yeah.
So, good morning. I think we have a caller.
No, he was great. Old Joe.
He's on. Good morning. We have a caller.
Caller, can you hear us?
Hello, barely. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Chris, Saugerties. Toodlum is one hamlet of Veteran. And then Asbury Park is another hamlet, kind of more lesser-known one than Saugerties. And then what's that area in Saxton Flats?
Yes.
Isn't there a hamlet from that community that
That's
there's
not
like
called
that
Saxon?
abandoned community that's off of 32 North?
Yeah, I was trying to think of that myself when I was naming them, because I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm trying to think of that name, and I've heard it recently.
I think there's a name of a hamlet. There's actually people that are like treasure hunters that go back in the abandoned dwellings. And speaking of that, there's that abandoned neighborhood that's off of Old Kings Highway when you right next to the thruway when you go up in there. So Assemblyman Cahill, in your next term, what are you going to do for everybody? What are your plans for legislation? And don't be afraid of the darkness, Kevin. Just a little inside joke. Have a great day, guys.
All right, Chris. Thanks.
Chris.
Thanks. Thank you. Well, we have big plans for the coming term. Not only are we going to be pursuing several of the pieces of legislation that we're advancing this year that we think are still not going to be quite ripe for passage, but certainly need to be considered. But in addition, I'll be talking to my new constituents, I hope, and seeing what sort of things they want me to bring to the table. A lot of people don't realize that a good portion of what we do is simply conveying information from others. And, we carry some local laws. We have one measure that we're considering that we've put in and at the request of Ulster County that would allow them to waive the interest on late payments on real property taxes in the height of COVID. We don't know whether it's going to go. We don't even know whether it's absolutely necessary, but Ulster asked us to advance it so that they would have that tool in their tool shed.
I've been doing that on my own for the last 2 years anyway.
Right. A lot of people have. That's right. And that was one of the things we learned when we started.
Plans as well.
When we started the drafting, we were told basically by the Real Property Tax Office a lot of these powers already exist. And I said, well, the county asked for it, so we'll draft the bill, and then we'll continue our discussion and figure it out. But
I've instituted my payment plan permanently going forward because it
works.
It worked tremendously.
Yeah.
I mean, because the intimidation factor goes away for people who can't come up with that $3,000 or $4,000 payment right away.
Yeah.
This year, in 6 months, we had 97% of our property taxes paid in 6 months.
So Hugh Reynolds sent me a note, and he said, "What are you going to do about Central Hudson?" I get that note about every 2 days now, and I heard you guys singing the praises of the storm response, and I would temper it a little bit. I think that the crews on the ground were unbelievable. I talked to them. I went around the county and actually talked to the crews. Many of them were contract crews, and that's because the rank and file of the tree clearing and the linemen and a lot of them have been decimated by Fortis once they took over and started to streamline the company. So they had to bring in ringers. They had to bring in people they hired from out of the area. The other question we have is whether they pushed the alarm button soon enough. By their own admission, it looks like they didn't do so until Friday. We knew on Thursday that this storm was coming. We knew it was going to be monumental. The governor had already scheduled a visit to Kingston on Friday morning. So the question is, why did Central Hudson, if they did wait, why did they wait? But Reynolds was asking in particular about the spike in the energy costs, which is a whole other subject. I'd be happy to talk about it if any of the callers want to, but I will say this. One of my responses was we have to fix the budget billing plan, and he did. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but essentially I got the sense that he was coming back to me, well, that's just taking the same money out of a different pocket. But that's one of the things that works, Bill. It actually works to give people an opportunity to level. And the computer glitch that resulted in bills going through the roof temporarily was a shock to the system, and it takes a long time for people to recover from that. The estimated readings that take place every other month that cause bills to spike every other month is a problem for people. And maybe there's some issues about how Central Hudson went about acquiring the energy. Did they do it in a way that was responsible and with some foresight?
There, I just throw a shout in. As energy consumers, we have the choice to go into the energy market and seek our own.
Yeah.
And we don't have to rely on Central Hudson's choice for us to do that.
Right.
Or in Strawberries, one of the things we've been able to put together is a CCA program.
That's looking better now in the light of all this.
Sure.
The folks that are in the CCA are saving money on the energy side of their bill.
Right. And I think we have to expand those opportunities. Some of those things were done with, former Senator Jen Metzger, both as a senator and as an advocate. She was one of the chief advocates of CCA across, and it's community choice aggregation. And we have to improve those programs to make it easier for communities to opt in, make it more transparent for people to understand what they're doing. Because how many times do you look in your bill and the Central Hudson has to say by the law, and they say you have a choice of who provides your electricity. We'll deliver it. You'll still get one bill, but you get to choose. And then you get things in the mail that kind of like seem too good to be true, and oftentimes they are.
My only issue, and actually we have a meeting on Friday to follow up because we're getting ready to take the next step on the CCA, is that it shouldn't be an opt-out only program. In other words, community commits to it, that automatically opts in all your residents, and then they have to opt out individually on their own. And that's been my pet peeve with it, because you have a lot of older people who aren't computer savvy, who aren't going to have the knowledge to do it, and they're going to feel like they're trapped in this program without having the ability to opt out.
There's a philosophical resistance to
Yes.
But let me explain why I think that is done. It is done because of what we just said, the inertia of people not to make change. And if somebody sat down, like especially somebody who's responsive to the public, a public elected official, which Central Hudson is not, when Central Hudson goes and buys your electricity, they're doing it mostly just to do it as easy as possible.
Yeah,
you know?
they're doing that in their own
Right.
interest.
So, and by the way, when you buy electricity, you don't really buy electricity. You're buying the rights to electricity. An electron doesn't know where it came from, and it doesn't know where it's going. It just flows on the path of least resistance. And once it's in the pipeline, it's in the pipeline, or on the cable, right?
In our effort to clarify, we're confusing people.
There you go. There you go.
Perfectly, but it's the truth.
But what you do is you're buying the rights to a certain kind of electricity at a certain price, and so once that electron is in there, when it mixes in with all the others, if you have that 4-cent kilowatt hour next to the 11-cent kilowatt hour, it doesn't know the difference. Whatever's coming to your outlet will be 4 cents, right? And that's the difference. There is a time when, let's just say, the price of natural gas was depressed, that signing up for a green power initiative might have been more costly than taking the natural gas alternative, which is how most power is generated in New York State. I think about 60% of our power comes from natural gas. Yeah, but now with natural gas prices spiking, not just natural gas, but all fossil fuel prices spiking, and not just in New York State, but all over the world, green energy is cost effective again. And where's that break point, and how often are you ready to roll the dice and say, I care enough about the environment, so I'm going to do this even if it means that someday my next door neighbor is going to get power a little less expensive than me. On balance, for the future, you're probably better off signing up for some level of green power. And aggregators are able to do that with a higher level of sophistication. Getting people to sign up is extremely difficult. Getting them to sign out, to opt out, is a lot easier.
Oh, no, I understand, I think, but
I hear you.
But that's the pushback Freddie and I both got from people. Who are you to tell us that we have to opt in, and if we don't want to be in, then we have to take the initiative to opt out?
Yeah.
That's the pushback from people I've gotten.
Everybody's agreeing on the aggregation. It's the other two words that they're not sure about. Is it community or is it choice?
Exactly. So that's my, I think, I know, because the town's about 6 months ahead of us on this, and one thing I disagree with, people were going out on public media saying, we knew nothing about this. Well, that's false.
That's their fault.
There was plenty of literature put out there notifying people that this change was coming,
Sure,
and
but-
they're doing the same in the village.
But again, let's go back to why they felt that way. They felt that way because stuff comes in the mail and it's suspect.
Yes,
It
of course.
sounds too good to be true. Even I get things for the solar aggregation right now coming under a county letterhead, under a county solar program, and I look at that and I think this is not really from a county agency. This is somebody who's using the good reputation of the county to sell me a product, and that immediately causes my antenna to go up. So
The rollout of the CCA had that flavor to it as well.
Yeah.
Where, it was on partially town letterhead, but it's a private organization, and it was really, and we fielded a lot of calls of confusing to people. But with the opt-out, I think I would remind people, if you do nothing, if you don't make a proactive choice about your energy supply, you're defaulting to Central Hudson being your agent, and they're
Right.
making that choice for you.
Yes.
So when you opt out, you're basically opting out away from Central Hudson having the authority to make that decision. You're proactively making it for yourself. And I think one of the things the CCA affords that other opportunities doesn't give us is if you live in an apartment and your energy bill is fairly low, are you going to go through the effort to understand your bill to get a savings of, maybe $200 or $300 a year?
Well, even that, Fred, because let's go to the other portion of this, the whole discussion. When you open your bill and you do peel it apart, and right now it's about 6 pages with charts and graphs, and you start looking at the charts and graphs, one of the things that's going to knock you off your chair is how little of your bill is associated with the actual cost of the commodity of energy, and how much of it is associated with the administration and delivery of that energy by Central Hudson. They have been able to, and by the way, they'll be back. They'll be back for a rate increase because of this storm. And one of the reasons why we're being so cautious and skeptical about it is we don't believe that ratepayers ought to pay for the negligence of the company. We believe that ratepayers should legitimately pay for legitimate storm recovery that was unpredictable and that they did the best they could and they minimized those costs. But to the extent that Central Hudson didn't maintain crews, didn't maintain tree lines, didn't maintain distribution lines. Well, they should be held accountable for that because we pay them to do that. And if they don't do it, they're squandering our money. And you know who should pay for it? Now somebody said, well, somebody's going to pay for it. The shareholders. If the shareholders are benefiting from them not spending their maintenance money correctly that they were given in a previous rate, then the shareholders should suffer the burden if that comes home to roost. And that's really what we're looking at. The other thing too is when you go with a CCA or when you go offline, even if you go to what's called an ESCO, it's not even community aggregation. You can sign up yourself. You don't have to do community aggregation.
Direct Energy, there's a lot of
Right.
supply companies.
Right. So what you're doing there is you are taking yourself out of the market clearing auction process. And if you want to really confuse people, give us an hour and I'll explain the market clearing method of buying electricity, which is how Central Hudson does it. They buy it in 5-minute auctions. Everybody bids in. They look at, and people say, here's how much energy I'm going to need tomorrow. And all the energy producers say, here's how much I would charge you. And the people who charge the lowest go first. And the people who offer the highest price go last. And whoever is the highest price that gets in
Price everybody gets,
is the
right?
price everybody gets, right?
You
So
could have a 2 or 3 cent kilowatt overhead and be willing to sell it for that. But if I come in at 15 and I'm the seller, everybody gets 15.
you could have more than that. You could have like some of the nuclear power plants in particular and some of the hydroelectric plants. It costs them nothing to generate that electricity at certain times, and they can bid in at negative numbers, and they have bid in at negative numbers so that they know they're going to be in the market to sell it. So they may bid in at negative 2 cents, and then all of a sudden Dan Scammer comes in and says, yeah, but we'll give you the last 5% for 14 cents. Everybody gets 14 cents. And I know it's
fairness inherent in that. I get it's a market fluctuation, but there seems to be
except, and again, we're way in the weeds here, but I stood at the FERC in Washington, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, and I looked at the nationwide map of these auctions taking place. And what is interesting is you will see a dramatic spike. I watched it one August on Long Island, a dramatic spike in the price of electricity. And within 5 minutes, the market responds and it plummets. And that's how that market clearing price works. It causes the entire market to pay attention to where there's an opportunity. And when everybody gloms in on that opportunity, then the price drops. But we have transmission congestion areas where there's not enough ways to get electricity through, so the number of participants in the market is smaller. We have operators who will game the system, and we have operators who distort the system.
We've all seen that. That was Dynegy, I think, was the big energy company that found a way to manipulate.
Entergy, the one in California, and then
In Texas, there was one that did it.
So
manipulating that market.
So it's been a while since I was in charge of the Energy Committee in the Assembly, but I learned a lot, and I stayed in touch with every energy chair since, especially now Mike Cusick, who's from Staten Island and knows a great deal about this stuff. And we talk on a regular basis, and we are, right now, my office is reaching out to Assemblyman Cusick's office to see if we have a statewide response to what we can do about the spiking cost of energy. Is there some way for New York State to separate itself from the other 49 and begin to regulate the price of the commodity again? So
one of the things that does influence pricing in the Hudson Valley is there's distribution congestion from the western part of the state to get it into the Hudson Valley outside of just west of Albany.
there is. And we could improve the capacity of our system if only we required the transmission and distribution companies to eliminate some of the line loss that they have. We have about 17% average line loss in New York State. In England, it's 5%. So why is that?
What's the contributing factor there?
The contributing factor is the age of our system and the refusal of the owners of the system to properly maintain it and to stop line leakage. So connections and frayed lines and a lot of other things cause electricity to enter into the atmosphere and never make it to its destination. And in New York State, under our regulatory schema, our utilities are allowed to build that into their rate. We have to buy that much electricity. It doesn't matter whether it gets lost along the way. We still have to buy it. We can charge you consumers for it. And that's built into their rate. And if we stopped it, we could save 15%, easily 15% of the electricity.
There's another carbon story along with that and a whole bunch of
True.
efficiencies that are being lost.
Very complicated stuff.
I know
But
Fortis, it's an undertaking to replace transmission line. It was a 2.5-year process and I don't know that it's approved yet to replace the transmission line that goes from Catskill to Kingston.
Yes.
And they're going to create the monolithic pole versus the lattice pole, but it was a 2.5-year secret study to do it.
It's complicated, it's expensive, and if you do it right and you prepare for the future, it's even more expensive. But I think if you look the cost of and the cost effectiveness of it is, it says the payback is next to nothing. Central Hudson sends you stuff about weatherizing your house and say, oh, your payback is 3 years. The payback on these lines is not even double-digit numbers of years. And the problem is that it means that today's shareholders have to pay for it, and they don't want to.
The capital burden of that.
Right. So we're working on it. We're working on that. We're working on housing issues. We're working on making sure the full funding of schools goes through. The governor gave us a good foundation to start with there, with full funding of foundation aid, and we're trying to expand pre-K to make sure that every school district has the option to do it and do it right. We're doing a lot of stuff in Albany, and I'm really grateful that the people have given me the opportunity to do it, and that next year, hopefully, I'll be doing it for the people of the village of Saugerties and all those hamlets around the town.
You got at least 2 more votes next year.
Trying to think if I have any. I got relatives up there. I better have more than 2. Of course, they're not in Saugerties. They're in Mount Marion.
That's true. Brothers in Berkeley Heights, I think, right?
I had my brother lived in Glasgow, but he moved to Florida and then he passed away. But
oh, geez, sorry.
He lived in Glasgow, and his kids went to Riccardi, and and then my family also my family has been in Mount Marion for 50 years, and my nephew Dave and his clan, the gigantic clan that Dave is a part of, we have relatives in a couple of other places.
So we spent almost the entire day in Mount Marion the day of the storm, because obviously we were hit hard everywhere, but for whatever reason they really took it on the chin up there.
Yeah.
And they have
it was a very localized storm.
Yep. They had a private water system that was denied power, and it doesn't have the generating capacity, and there's like 2.5 days of water supply, and power was out for a little over 2 days, so we were starting to panic that they might run out. So we brought the town generator up there and started to repump water up to the hill. And the crews on the ground from Central Hudson stopped by and like, hey, don't kill yourselves. We're going to have this on in a half hour. I give you my word. And I looked at the guy. I'm like, really? He's like, I won't say if I didn't believe it. And sure enough, he had us up and running. So
it sounds like you're talking to me about one of my first projects is to get some generating capacity for the water system in Mount Marion.
The operator there is, he gets in the way. It's unfortunate.
That's true of a lot of water systems.
Yeah, you deal, when Laura was with your staff, we dealt with her, and Hurley's the same owner. So.
Yep. We're dealing with it. So I wish Bill was in today, Bill McKenna. It would have been good to see him. It was good to hear him early in the morning, static and all. But
staticky?
Oh, it was way staticky this morning. But but I'm looking forward to sitting down with him. I promised him I would have been here 2 weeks ago, and then I couldn't make it. And did he show up?
I think he called in.
Oh, okay.
But it's been a challenge for him to get a reliable connection to stay on.
Yeah.
I think he's only actually been in the studio once since we moved over here.
That was 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, that was. That's right.
You and I were here.
We'll get him
Let's
here.
not get it confused, though. When we moved from John Street to here, him and
the main
Fred
guy.
and Joe Sinaga and a few others. I can tell you that guy is strong.
He's strong.
He's probably stronger than all four of us.
Yeah, I think he carried this table.
Yeah, there's a few things. That table and my mother's credenza are like from 1975, and they are heavy.
That sounds like Billy.
Once again, guys, excellent job today. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for coming in. We'll see you guys next week. Kevin, we'll see you in a couple weeks. Have a great day.